Well, Donald Trump's New York criminal trial will resume on Monday after taking a pause on Friday so that the former president could attend his son Barron's high school graduation. Important moment for him. The defense is expected to finish up its cross-examination of former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen on Monday. So now let's bring in constitutional attorney Mark Smith to get us ready for the big day on Monday. I want to go back in time a little bit because Donald Trump finally had a really good day this past week. Defense tore into Cohen's testimony about the hush money payment. He had said under oath that he was going to make a call. It was going to be about the hush money payment with Stormy Daniels, but then they released text messages that show that the call was about something completely different. How big of a deal was that moment? Was it a pivotal moment for the defense? And how do you think the jury took it?
Well, yeah, Aisha, I think it's a huge moment in favor of President Trump that Michael Cohen demonstrated how he got really convicted of being a perjurer and a criminal in other contexts. So I think it was a very good moment for President Trump. However, the one thing we have to keep in mind that every single day in this country, people go to prison and are convicted by virtue of the testimony of known criminals. So one danger that President Trump still has is, will this jury still believe enough of Michael Cohen's testimony to find Donald Trump guilty? Now, you and I are never going to go into business with Michael Cohen. We're not going to want to enter into a contract with Michael Cohen. That's pretty clear. But again, the question is, will this jury still credit just enough testimony of Michael Cohen to find Donald Trump guilty? I don't think they should. But again, we're not on the jury, so it's all up to the jury at the end of the day.
Mark, would it be smart for the defense to just let this rest with the last witness being Michael Cohen? I mean, that would be the smart thing to do, right?
Well, if you feel things are going your way, if the trend is your friend in a criminal case, then yes, you don't want to do anything to disrupt the trend. So if they feel that they've destroyed Michael Cohen and they feel good about how that jury reacted and they're watching the jury every moment of this trial, if they feel good about that trend, then yeah, I would basically let sleeping dogs lie, sit down, move for a directed verdict and go to closing arguments if that's denied. So I would not do anything to disrupt a favorable trend. And it looks right now as the trend is very favorable in that courtroom for President Trump.
Okay, so talk to me about Judge Marchand and these jury instructions, because now it's all on the jury, right? We've got 12 jurors, 7 of them are men, 5 women, and 2, and this is big, 2 are attorneys, lawyers themselves. So talk about how important the instructions now are for the jury from Judge Marchand, because you're saying that this could go either way depending on what he says.
Aisha, this is an unappreciated sort of thing for non-lawyers, the importance of jury instructions. In that courtroom, there's one person that the jury trusts because they feel there's one person that is a neutral arbiter of what's going on. That is the judge. So whatever the judge says to the jury is really taken very seriously. When the judge instructs the jury as to what constitutes a crime, when they should find Donald Trump guilty or not guilty, those instructions are mission critical. And Judge Marchand so far has generally been very favorable to the government against President Trump. So if he gives jury instructions to the jury that's very favorable with broad definitions, making it easy for the jury to convict Donald Trump, that's going to be a problem. And unfortunately, if you screw up jury instructions, which happens all the time in American law, it takes a year or 2 on appeal to fix them and retry the case. That will be long after the November 2024 election for President Trump. So hopefully Judge Marchand does not mess up the jury instructions. But based on how he's handled this case so far, I'm not really optimistic.
And we get to see those, right? We get to see those instructions as well? Public?
Oh, you would get to see them, and they will be read out loud to the jury as he instructs the jury. So we'll know exactly what the instructions are, and we'll be able to critique them or compliment them depending on what is said.
Okay. Switching gears really quickly to the other big trial in the same city, Bobby Menendez, of course, the senator from New Jersey. This week, the jury there in this case, saw the gold bars, the infamous gold bars that were found in his home. Of course, the Mercedes was a big deal, too. Explain to me, Mark, if you can, why the defense here is, in a way, I mean, I'm reading it as throwing his wife, Nadine, under the bus here, who, by the way, is now dealing with stage 3 breast cancer. What's the strategy here?
Well, I think Senator Menendez is probably going to argue that virtually all of his conduct has innocent explanations. That everything he did associated with his official duties can be explained away by simply being a political official on the Foreign Affairs Committee. On the other hand, he wants to be able to explain why there are these gold bars and this cash in his home, and he's by saying that look, based on the reporting, these were found mostly in Nadine Menendez's closet, which is his wife's closet. And he's basically arguing
she has a Middle
that she
Eastern
had her own
background.
personal and business relationships.
Yeah, she's cultural. He's basically saying this is culturally normal, which I have Middle Eastern friends, and yes, they have gold bars. It is culturally normal, but that doesn't sound like a very strong argument.
Well, if you think about it, they're talking a lot about these gold bars, but these gold bars are very heavy. And if you think about it, basically these gold bars are the equivalent of a single Bitcoin. And it's not unusual in American life today as we look at the price of gold going up, the price of silver going up, the price of Bitcoin going up. There's a lot of concern in this country about political distress and currency collapse and things like this. This is talked about all the time on the business channels, Aisha. So it's not crazy to think that someone would take certain steps to protect themselves by keeping things out of the financial institutions. Not everyone does it, but one could do it. Of course, Bob Menendez can also argue that it's not unusual for U.S. senators to do quite well financially by virtue of the fact they're senators. So why would he have to go through a bribery scheme if there's other ways to make money, if that's all he cared about? So again, it's going to be a big fight between DOJ and Bob Menendez's lawyers. And of course, that's why DOJ really is going to rely upon the one witness that was a criminal defendant that has flipped and will now give prosecution testimony. So again, this is going to be a dogfight and certainly a case that we should be watching.
A lot of good cases in New York that we are watching. Well, some good is the definition is something else. Dramatic cases. Mark Smith, thank you very much for joining us. You have a great weekend.